What's up, everybody? Kim Becker and Arif Dean here for your weekly AMA for the Colorado Avalanche, brought to you by Mile High Sports. Make sure that you are following Arif at Run Right Arif so that when he asks what questions you may have when it comes to the Colorado Avalanche, you can ask your questions and we will answer them right here every Monday on Mile High Sports. Arif, I know we're going to start with a topic here that, of course, is always on everyone's mind, especially with the last couple of months, it seems, last few months probably at this point since it's 2023. But can you give us an update on any new injuries? Who looks like they may be returning first, if you know?
Yeah, so we got a couple of updates today from Jared Bednar. So right off the bat, Darren Helm is finally making his season debut. The Avalanche have not seen Darren Helm since Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. So really excited to have him back in the lineup. Martin Kaut will also be returning to the lineup. So that's two guys that are going to be entering at forward, which means that two guys will be sitting for them. Obviously, Nathan MacKinnon also came back last game. Now, for the others, Josh Manson is going to start skating Tuesday. So he's on his way. No updates on Frankie or on Val Nichushkin yet. No updates on Bowen Byram yet, which is that in itself is an update because he should be well on his way to skating. And then the big one for me is Gabe Landeskog. The exact words that Jared Bednar used was not even close.
No.
So Gabe Landeskog, 12 weeks from his initial prognosis or diagnosis was, I think, we'll put him around January 19, and he's not even close to skating. So take with that what you will. Does that mean he's going to sit for the rest of the regular season? Does that mean he's going to sit for the rest of January into February? The Avalanche still, they're only 34, 35 games in. So there's, 45, 46 games left of the regular season. Plenty of time to get Gabe going. Even if he doesn't play for another 30 games, he'll still have a solid 15 to 20 games to get ready for the regular season. I'm not saying it's going to get to that point. But a January return for Gabe Landeskog is looking more doubtful by the day and by the update. So that's ultimately where we are. Yeah, it is unfortunate. This is a guy that, if you guys remember back to last season, Gabe played a game in March. And after that game, the Avalanche announced that he was going to have surgery and be out for the rest of the regular season. So he missed the regular season. He came back for the playoffs. He was exceptional in the playoffs. And he had 11 goals, 11 assists. He played in all 20 games. But he did not take a single morning skate. He did not skate for a single practice. He did nothing but play the games and laid it out on the line for those games. And then that was it. So from last March until today, Gabe Landeskog has only played 20 playoff games, obviously 20 of the most important games in this team's history. Is that a concern? Maybe. Is that what is going to happen again this year? Too early to tell, maybe. But that's where we are on the captain.
Wow. Gosh, what a bummer. Not even close. Not the words that we were hoping for today, Arif. So thanks a lot giving us that news here in our first AMA of 2023. But no, I'm just giving you a hard time. I know that's, and of course, something that everyone will be looking forward to hearing the opposite in regards to there. But we'll keep on going here. Cale Makar is averaging over 25 minutes this season. Does it worry you that he could be out of gas, however, by the time the season ends and potentially leading into the playoffs with all of these injuries and him having to fill some of those voids?
So I love this question because this is literally something that JJ Jerez and I and Peter Baugh from The Athletic, we all talked about on the podcast on Sunday. So definitely check that out. But this is something that has been a little bit of a concern for me. And it's not just for Cale, it's for Mikko, for JT, for Evan Rodriguez, for all the guys that are playing a lot of minutes. It's the fact that not only are the Avalanche injured, not only are there depth guys that are being inserted into the lineup, not giving you much, which is causing Jared to really shorten the bench and play his, top guys over and over. It's the fact that all of these games are close. Like you have to go back probably to the Finland games when they shut out Columbus. I want to say 5 or 6-0 or something crazy in the second game. You got to go back that far to a game where the Avalanche had a comfortable, a 4-1 whooping where, late in the game, they could rest their top guys, play the depth guys for more minutes. They just haven't had those games. So they're either trailing in games like they were in Toronto. They're playing catch up hockey where their top guys have to take the ice every other shift to play catch up, or they're in games that are going to overtime that are 1-1 late where you can't rest your top guys. But having one of those traditional games, if you remember, there was a game that Buffalo had a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago now, where Tage Thompson had 5 goals. And it was that crazy game that Buffalo had where they won 9-2 or something. And Tage Thompson had 5 goals. Literally, he played 14 minutes, if not 13. And this is one of their guys that usually plays in the 20s. And the reason why that was is because Tage went out there and scored all these goals, and the Sabres got this big lead where now, late in the game, you can just play your third and fourth line, rest your top guys. You're not going to lose a 9-2, 9-3 lead. You've got the game under wraps. This is something the Avalanche were able to do a bunch last year. They just haven't had that chance this year because of the injury. So am I concerned for it? Not necessarily am I concerned. It is something to watch for. Cale is young. He's got a lot of miles left to give in the NHL. He's in really good shape. Same with Mikko. Same with JT. Evans, a little bit older, but I don't want to say I'm concerned about it or I'm worried about it, but it is something to watch out for. If this continues for another 20, 30, 40 regular season games, it could be an issue.
Yeah, I'd say so. Okay, let's kind of stay on the same topic here, but look between the pipes with Frankie's current injury. Do you think Johansson should get a few starts to give Georgiev some rest, Arif?
Short answer, yes. And this is something that we've been kind of bothering Jared Bednar about pretty much every time he speaks with media. Georgie has played 8 straight games. Obviously, the Christmas holiday was put in there, that 3-day break. Not much of a break, but a little bit of a break. He started 5 straight, 3 days off. He's started now 3 straight since. He's gone 0-2-1. You can tell he's not playing his best hockey since Christmas. The short answer is yes. The long answer is absolutely, because of that reason. Because you're starting to see, I don't know if you want to call them signs of fatigue, signs of inconsistency, struggles, whatever it is that's causing this. If your goalie's on a heater, ride him. If he's not, he's eventually going to need a game off. The thing is, against the Golden Knights, you can't give him that day off, but you do have games coming up after this against, the next one after this, the Avalanche have a couple of days off. They don't play till Thursday, which is nice. They have the Vancouver Canucks, who have struggled, the Edmonton Oilers, who are a good team but have struggled, the Panthers, who have struggled, the Blackhawks, who are one of the worst in the league, Ottawa, who has struggled, Detroit, who's kind of struggling. So a lot of very winnable games coming up where Jonas Johansson absolutely should get into the lineup once, if not twice, maybe even 3 times, depending on what the situation is with Frankie and if he's coming back anytime soon.
Okay, perfect. Well, hey, we'll see what happens with that one, huh?
Yeah, it's just like every other injury situation and everything else going. It's just kind of all fluid right now.
Yeah, seems crazy. All right, well, we're still going to kind of talk about injuries, an objective answer here coming up, but are we still going to make the SC's playoffs this year given the injuries we still have?
Yeah, so Stanley Cup playoffs for the Colorado Avalanche. I'm not at a point yet where I am concerned, or I don't believe they're at a point yet where they're concerned that they're not going to make it. But the longer this goes, the more it could become an issue. The Avalanche, right before Christmas, won 4 straight games. They were feeling pretty good. Now they've lost 3 straight games. They're not feeling as good. They're still comfortably within reach. They are in outside of the playoff picture right now by 1 point. But they have 3 games in hand on the team ahead of them, which is the Edmonton Oilers and the Minnesota Wild, which is 3rd place in the Central, which is an automatic playoff bid. They have 1 game in hand on them, and they're only 3 points back. So by no means is the season lost. They're still 6-3-1 in their last 10. Basically, the whole purpose of that spiel was to say 1 good week can make you feel really good. 1 bad week can make you feel really nervous. And that's just kind of the highs and lows. That's the ebbs and flows of a season. I'm confident, and I know this team is also confident, that even despite all these injuries, they are too talented and too good to have more bad weeks than good weeks. And given the way that the Central Division, the Western Conference is shaken out so far, where teams like the St. Louis Blues have kind of dropped off, the Nashville Predators have dropped off, the Calgary Flames are kind of on that cusp. So is Edmonton, Seattle's on that cusp. You feel comfortable if you're the Avalanche to say you're going to make the playoffs. The biggest thing for them is I think they want to secure a more comfortable spot before April so that you're not playing to game 82 for it. But again, a lot of this is going to rely on the trade deadline, who they bring in, the injuries, because the injuries and getting, like, if Gabe Landeskog jumps into your lineup on, let's say, March 9th, pick a random day, that in itself is a trade deadline acquisition. So their own trade deadline acquisitions, if you want to call it that, who they're going to acquire, the injuries, and just kind of, you want that to kind of all be figured out before April so that you're not chasing a playoff spot all the way up to game 82.
No, absolutely. Okay. Hey, we like that answer for where we are right now in the season. And if you look back at last season, there were a lot of weeks that I'm sure we were asking ourselves the same question about last year's squad, and look where they ended up. So
real quick about last year's squad. They started slow, they ended slow, But they had that stretch from early to mid-December through like early to mid-February where they went 21-1. They were going just
Insane.
crazy because they won 5. They lost that game to Nashville where everybody got COVID right before the whole league shut down
Right.
for a few weeks. Then they won 5 again. Then they lost to Nashville in overtime. Then they won 10.
That is crazy.
So for whatever reason, Nashville beat them both times, but they were just on a complete heater last year. But that was Darcy Kemper finally figuring it out, full length, full health. Not a lot of people were missing. Rantanen, not Lehkonen, but Burakovsky. Everybody was going. So it is a little bit different this year. Does it mean that the season's going to end differently? Not necessarily, but it is obviously a little bit more stressful to follow if you're a fan than, obviously a season ago.
Right. But of course, you're never going to have a perfect season. You're never going to have a team that wins every single game, that has a perfect week every week.
I would argue that the 21-22 season was the closest you'll ever get to perfect.
There you go.
There was not a lot of stress, even in the playoffs. Like the Avalanche never trailed in a series. They had a 3-1 series or 3-0 series lead on in every series. The only stress they had was like St. Louis making that game 5 comeback, Tampa Bay winning game 5, which still sent it to game 6 and gave you 2 more chances to win. It was just perfection in every sense last year. Every time you thought there was a struggle, McKinnon went down, well, Kadri came in and took over. So like if you're looking for perfect in the NHL, in the salary cap era, it was the 21-22 season. It's not usually that easy, and I say that word loosely, to do what the Avalanche did.
No, so everyone forget it. It's over. It's over. Everyone panic. Arif just basically said, press the panic button.
I mean, hey, look at the Tampa Bay Lightning. The year that they blew through the regular season, they got swept in the playoffs. And last year then they won 2 cups. And then last year they didn't have home ice advantage at all at any time and still made the cup final 3 years in a row. So the regular seasons get a little tougher because your team gets a little more fatigued and injured and hurt. But the playoffs is when it matters. And I'm confident that, even a 75% healthy Gabe Landeskog or Nichushkin on 1 foot like last year are going to step into the lineup and be difference makers if it was the playoffs.
All right. Well, good stuff there. We'll wrap this one up with one more question. Do you think the Avalanche will make a trade before the deadline in March? Our own trades aside here with Landeskog.
Yeah. So I definitely think so. The question is probably formatted in a way where it's asking if they're going to make a trade before deadline day. I think they will for 2 reasons. So the reality, look, this is the boring part of the sport that nobody likes to talk about, the salary cap. This is a very smart management group with Chris MacFarland, Joe Sakic, and their staff, where the longer you wait closer to the trade deadline, the more trade deadline and cap space, the more cap space you accumulate and you accrue and you have to make trades. The Avalanche don't have a lot of flexibility right now. Mm-hmm. That's why when they made a trade, it was Dryden Hunt for Dennis Malgin, cheap roster depth guy for cheap roster depth guy. I think the only way they make a trade, 2 things would have to happen for them to make a trade before getting, inching closer to that deadline, like something in mid-January, for example. Number 1, they lose so many games where they genuinely feel panicked, like we need to get somebody in the lineup now, or we legitimately believe we're going to miss the playoffs, which I have no reason to believe that that's the case. Joe Sakic and Chris MacFarland are as calm and cool and collected right now as I've ever seen them. Came out of the elevator after that game on Saturday with Joe. And rather than being concerned that they lost 6-2, and Chris MacFarland, all 3 of us walking, rather than being concerned that they lost 6-2 to the Leafs, rather than being concerned they surrendered 17 goals in 3 games, we were talking about college football. Uh-huh. And it was just, Michigan lost. Ohio's playing Georgia. There was no stress in any of those guys' faces. Mm. And usually you can sense it when they feel it. You sense it during the playoffs. There was a lot of times you can feel it. Right. So unless they get to that point, which they're not there yet, the second thing is if they end up running into a situation with Gabe Landeskog or Val Nichushkin or whoever, the more likely one is Landeskog, where they feel like they need to put one of these players on long-term injury reserve. What that does is Gabe Landeskog's cap space, if he doesn't play a single regular season game, and I'm not saying this is what's happening, but if he doesn't play a regular season game, his $7 million cap space, you can use it to acquire other players, because when the playoffs begin, there is no cap. Mm-hmm. So if the Avalanche feel panicked, like they have to make a move, MacFarland, Sakic, and company will find a way to make cap space and to find a way to have that flexibility to make a move to jumpstart the team. Or if Gabe Landeskog, he's not playing into the playoffs and he jumps on LTIR, well, now you have $7 million to play with, and you can do so much more with that. If those two situations don't happen, if those two scenarios don't work out, I think the Avalanche will wait as close as possible to March 3rd, the deadline day, because you accrue more cap space as you get closer to that day. And that's when you can do things like they did last year where they went out and got Josh Manson and Lehkonen and Cogliano and Sturm and all that. So again, it's all about the panic. I don't think they're at a panic level where they feel like they're going to miss the playoffs. I don't feel like they're at a panic level where they feel like they need to make a trade now. I don't think there's panic in the goaltending situation. Johansson will play. It's the theme of the season. Yeah. So it's just kind of, they're going to continue to ride it out. They've had a bad week. It's just about having a good week. And, if they have a good week coming up here, this conversation is going to feel a lot different in a week from now, like it did right before the holidays.
Absolutely. All right, Arif, thanks so much. We won't panic quite yet, but maybe next week we'll get back to that and see if our opinions have changed here, but I appreciate it. And to everybody listening, thank you so much for tuning in. This was your weekly AMA for the Colorado Avalanche, brought to you by Mile High Sports. Arif, I will see you next Monday.
Sounds good. Thank you.